I mean, were you like, was it seconds away, like spitting venom?
Yeah. No, he was like coming at me, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. Hold the phone. How about this?
PJ's putting his hands up right now.
I'm like, let me tell you about this. What is it with trades? So that's my Seinfeld impersonation. Pretty bad, but anyway.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Good morning, everybody. Hope you are doing well. This is Done Lite, brought to you by Foreman, Watson, Holtrey, from our high-rise 530 Frederica Street. PJ, how are you doing?
Doing well in the highest of rises.
We are here. We are up higher than everyone.
We're at least
in this city block.
12 feet in the air, at least. Maybe
that just gets
15.
to you, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't get to me. I just think it's funny.
Every time I say the high rise, you start laughing like it's like, I don't know. All right. You got to have something that just, you have to have something about the intro. After all that, you have to have something that just kind of always is to look forward to. So here we are.
That's right.
And it's another day. And look, we have got, today we are going to talk about something that a lot of people that know me know a little bit about my background. And so we decided, didn't we already pick a name for today's episode? And it's Fight Club.
That's right.
Right?
Well, the first rule is you don't talk about it.
So today it's silent.
It's going to be 25 minutes of
silence.
Pure silence.
I get asked a lot about how I can be in such a confrontational profession and not just totally lose my temper and like fight, just
right.
How I've done. And, there's a lot of types of law that you practice that there is no confrontation. And a lot of lawyers migrate to that. It's the intellectual work where you are writing more and that's great. But what we do,
right.
I mean,
where's the fun in that?
Right,
though?
right. Well, and there you go. But what we do is we are always finding areas where people disagree with us and having to hammer those out, and you do it in depositions, in the courtroom, in hearings, in front of the judge, and so there's a lot of confrontation. In fact, I always go home, and when my kids are fighting, I say, I deal with confrontation all day long. The last thing I want is confrontation here.
Right.
I deal with conflict all day long, and I don't want conflict. But, so one of the questions is how have I kept from doing it? And the truth is, the truth is that has been harder for me, PJ, to not engage in like fisticuffs, which by the way, as a side note, did you know that when you take the oath to be an attorney in Kentucky, a part of your oath is that you have to swear that you have not engaged in a gun duel?
Really?
Yes. Yes, it's a part of the oath that attorneys take in Kentucky that says, I swear that I have not engaged in a gun duel.
And they actually say that.
Yes, you have your right hand in the air while you repeat that you have not done so.
Why is that?
It's
sounds
just
very
a part
antiquated.
It is. Now there's some other things that are more.
Right.
More
it's kind of like don't have an ice cream cone in your pocket on Sunday.
That's right. Those kinds of laws, and we
Right.
still have it in ours that we have not engaged in a gun duel.
Wow.
But you know why that's interesting? What is interesting is this very topic that we're talking about today, and it is bad for attorneys to have that kind of temperament,
absolutely.
because it can lead to really bad things. And so, I've had some discussions about this, and I've heard some crazy stories. In fact, I was going to have somebody call in today for this one, but I couldn't work that out, and we'll get him back on here. But an attorney that I litigated some cases with, tried a couple medical malpractice cases against a guy named Frank Stainback from here in Owensboro. A really good guy, taught me a lot. He was difficult adversary because he was always well prepared. He was no nonsense, all business, But Frank one time told told me that his one piece of advice for young attorneys when they're giving a deposition or engaged in a deposition is to not get mad. And I asked him, I said, well, why? I mean, for other than the obvious reasons, you don't want to get mad, but what?
Right.
He's like, because you have the inability to think clearly when you're mad. And I was like, I thought back on my life. When I get mad, I talk like on a first grade level probably, and I don't think clearly and make good decisions when I get mad. And so I thought that was great advice for young lawyers. Just whatever it is, don't get mad. If you find yourself getting mad, step off, take a break, and that kind of thing. But, we're going to talk a little bit about fighting today and the temperament that it takes within the practice of law and things like that. But I want to start and ask you a question, because I think in one of our earliest episodes, one of the first episodes we did, we briefly, I think it was when I talked about the confrontation out in the country about and you said that you said, well, I've only been close to being in one fight, and I laughed about that, and I was like, and you're like, and I kind of talked my way out, and I told you that someday we would come back to that, because I want to know, I have been in a lot of fights in college, okay, especially a couple in high school, but in college. You
told me some of the stories.
Yes, I have been in some serious, I've won a few, lost a few, a couple of draws, and I'd like to go back and finish them off, but I was flabbergasted by the fact that you've never really had a fight.
No.
So but the one that was close, I need the whole setting in this story. Will you tell us that?
I'll preface the situation by saying that I was the fat kid, so I got bullied a lot. And it was middle school, and truthfully, I don't remember what he was saying to me, or it was, probably fat boy or something, something along those lines, because I dealt with a lot of bullying. I mean, there were times where I'd go home crying, didn't want to go to school the very next day. That's
terrible, PJ.
Yeah. So I will say this, though, on a side note. I know people are very anti-bullying, and I'm not an advocate for bullying, but I will say that bullying made me a stronger person, because it goes back into what you said, which is conflict, and conflict drives narrative, and conflict creates discussion, and it doesn't have to be, a conflict with fists. I'm 100% against people just getting the crap kicked out of themselves to where they're bleeding and have to go to the hospital. That's one thing. That's assault. But bullying, when it's verbal, what that did for me is that made me realize, well, first of all, I wasn't very strong either, so still not, but that's beside the point. But
I've seen you put those big things of water on the water cooler here, though.
I've got a little bit of muscle mass.
Hey, I'm impressed. Those things weigh a lot, and you just sling them up there like they're cookies.
They're
man.
at least 45 pounds.
Yeah, they are heavy. I don't know how much. Go ahead.
And for me, it was growing my personality and my ability to do comebacks and things like that. So, which can get the crap kicked out of you at some point, but luckily I never got to that point. However, the closest I ever came to getting physically destroyed, because that's what would have happened. I would have just curled up. I would have got punched in the face and hit the ground and then just laid there while they kicked me, I'm sure. That's where it was headed. What I did, though, was I thought, there's only one way out of this for me. And
run.
I was the fat kid, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Now, I will say, over time, I was fast. If you've ever seen, you would look at me and think, man, if in a zombie apocalypse, that guy's gone. But when I'm scared, I will outrun everybody. If I'm being chased by a dog, I'm gone.
Well, see,
I don't run unless I'm being
chased.
Yeah, so you'd be surprised at how fast I can be when I'm scared. So, I instead of running, which I didn't do, because we were on it was at Davis County Middle School, so they got that big yard out front with the trees and everything.
Yeah.
So it was there,
right?
And this guy, this kid was like ready to go, like he was about to kick the crap out of me. Just because he was a jerk. It wasn't like I wasn't smarting off to him or anything like that. It was just he wanted to beat somebody up. I guess I don't know what his situation was at home, if he was being abused or if he was just an idiot, but
do you still see this guy around town?
No, I don't. I couldn't even tell you what his name was at this point.
Okay,
you think ahead. I would have remembered that, but he's forgettable like most bullies. So I just, moved on. And so anyway, so he was getting ready to like kick the crap out of me, and I just started making jokes. I was like, how about instead of beating me up, and then I would just make quips, just making puns left and right. And he started laughing, and then there was a few other people around, the people who were like ready to watch a fight, I guess. It became like a stand-up routine.
You're kidding me.
I'm dead serious. They all start laughing. He's like confused because instead of like trying to defend myself, he's like, what is happening right now? And then I just started, and I'm really good at self-deprecation, so I started doing that. And I mean, by the time that it got back around to the point where he was like, oh yeah, we were gonna fight, he wasn't angry or like it completely turned the tide. And it was like after that, he really actually didn't really bully me as much as he did before, because I would just make him laugh. Because I don't know if maybe it was he was so unhappy in life that he needed a little bit of that, a little bit of laughter.
I mean, were you like, was it seconds away, like spitting venom?
No, he was like coming at me, and I was like, whoa, wait a second, hold the phone. How about this?
PJ's putting his hands up right now.
I'm like, let me tell you about this. What is it with trades? So that's my Seinfeld impersonation. Pretty bad, but anyway, and that was the closest I've ever come. Now there have been times as I got older, I started getting more belligerent with bullies. So there were times where I probably should have been in a fight because I got really good at coming back at people. Because it always started with, it always starts with verbal abuse.
Right.
But the problem was I got really good with verbal abuse, like coming back with verbal abuse.
Yeah, so you would like almost like an intimidation verbally would keep the fight from
because the worst thing you can do with a bully is turn the tables on them and make everybody laugh at them.
Right.
And I got really good at that. So it got to a point
you built like
where,
a defense mechanism.
Oh yeah, that it very much became a defense mechanism. What sucks though is I joke a lot to the point that it's funny because there's a MASH episode where because Hawkeye, he's always doing these like quips and one-offs and stuff like that. And there's this one episode where someone basically says like he has no substance, he's just a jokester. That's all he has to him. And he takes that to heart and offense and gets offended by it. But he starts asking himself, he's like, is that all there is to me? It's a really good episode. And that's kind of like, that kind of encompasses how I feel sometimes, because sometimes I feel like I don't attribute much outside of being humorous.
Right.
And I think
you're good at that. You're good. Yeah.
You.
But just picturing you like getting in these, like yelling back at a bully and the bully like cowering away, like, oh
yeah, they back down when you come back at them verbally. Now it might be different now, and I'm sure it's also different with the types of bullies there are. I'm sure there's bullies that just go,
don't care.
I'm not taking this, I'm not taking this at all, and they just kick the crap out of you. Luckily, I never dealt with those types of bullies.
Pro bullies.
Yeah. These were bully up and coming. These are aspiring bullies. But I would shut them down quick, making fun of them and then making everybody laugh. And then it almost became it would become like a roast.
Yeah.
And but the problem is I had to do that so often that it became like a part of who I was. So I got really good at it. So every now and then, even today, like in Trina, I've done it to Trina, and she hates it.
Oh no! Yeah,
like I'll make people the butt of a joke just to get a laugh.
Uh-huh.
But I think too that's like the comedian inside of me.
Yeah.
But I've stopped doing it with Trina because I realized I
that's not
I
a
gotta
good
wake up
thing
next
with
to
your
her.
wife.
Yeah,
right,
I gotta wake up next to her.
Let me just tell you not to do that.
And it was never like I never did it with malice, but I think even it doesn't matter. Even if you don't do it with malice,
that's how it's heard.
Yeah,
right.
Some people still take it to heart. So I do it less now than what I used to.
I just don't know how you would make it as a lawyer if you were doing the kind of. I mean, because man, you would you could, if you have that ability to just sling words around like that at people, it could back them down. And I mean, you're not vulgar when you do it, right? It's just more of a
no. The only time I use vulgarity is when I get angry.
Okay,
Then it's like every other
see,
word.
there you go.
Yeah, and then every other word's the F-bomb, so it goes into
I got you.
I can debate if I need to, but at the same, but I don't think. And this is because I've thought about this before. There's no way I could be a lawyer, and it's because my memory's not as good. Like your memory is like a steel trap.
Yeah,
so you remember. I mean, I know you have help, and there's days where you still got to ask questions, but you have to remember so much about a case. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much information.
Everybody has a different
skill
set. I mean, I couldn't do what you do. And, that's, but it's interesting. It is interesting to me, your coping mechanism for confrontation that you developed, in school. Because, to some degree, I didn't have any issues like that. While you were telling that, and I hadn't planned on sharing this today, but it's kind of an interesting little story. When I was in kindergarten, this was back in the 70s, and believe it or not, it was safe for a kid to, we lived a half a mile from my elementary school, and my parents would let me ride my bike to school, in our little neighborhood, cut through our neighborhood, go through a little park, and I was at the school.
Right.
And so I was in kindergarten and I was riding my bike to school, and we had this bully in our school. He was in 5th grade in my elementary school, so he was 6 years older than me. And I was cutting through this park. It was on San Gabriel Drive, and I was cutting through this park in Pensacola, Florida, to go to Scenic Heights Elementary School. Okay, and as I saw Russell push this little girl named Kay Penix. He pushed her off of her bike and laughed at her. Now, I was smart enough to know that I was in kindergarten and he was in 5th grade, and that it was probably not a good idea to go up and take up for Kay. Right. But I immediately saw the injustice in that. And so I conjured up a way in my mind to get back at Russell. What I did was, the next day when I got to school, my teacher would always say, did you have a good morning coming to school? And I would say, yeah. Well, that morning, all right, my teacher said, how was your morning coming to school? And I was putting my lunchbox up on the shelf, and I said, not good. And she was like, well, what happened? What's wrong? And I said, Russell pushed me off my bike on the way to school today. And she was like, Russell who? And I said, Russell White. Russell White pushed me off my bike and scared me and yelled at me. And she was like, that's terrible. And, and she goes, it was Russell White. And she took all the information. Well, I didn't. I thought that was the end of it. I was like, haha, Russell's going to get in trouble, right?
Right.
Well, later in the day, my teacher comes over to me when all the other kids are laying down for rest time. And she says, can you go with me to see Mr. Ladner? Well, Mr. Ladner was the principal at our school. And so I go in to Mr. Ladner's office. And this was back when corporal punishment was allowed in school. So he had a big green paddle called the Green Machine, and he sat right behind his desk, and he had written on it, "Heat for the seat." Okay.
Oh,
yeah, right. No, I'm not joking.
He was serious.
Yeah, he was. He did. And so, I mean, and that they would still take kids out in the hallway and give them a whack or two on the behind, and there would be a witness teacher, and they'd sign a little book, and that's how it was carried out. There was
they still did that
in
when I
school.
went to elementary school.
Right. So Mr. Ladner says, he goes, Travis, he said, did you have an incident, or he didn't use those big words. I was in kindergarten. He said, but did you have problems this morning on your way to school? And I said, yeah, I did. I mean, I was ready. I could have been on the witness stand, man. And he says, well, what happened? And I said, Russell White was waiting for me in the park. And I said, and he pushed me off my bike and kicked sand on me and yelled at me and made fun of me. And he said, now, you're sure it was Russell White? And I said, yes. And they're like, and he was on his way to school this morning? I said, yes. I said, in fact, he followed me all the way to school. I added that little fact,
right.
and yelling and jeering at me, And so the principal's like, wow, you're sure it was Russell White? So he gives me a third time. I should have known something was like now. I would know I'm getting set up.
Yeah.
But
you're being interrogated here.
I was like, yes, it was this morning, And he goes, well, that's funny, Travis. He said, Russell didn't come to school today. And we called Russell's mom and dad. In fact, Russell's not even in town today. He called in school, not here. He said, so I don't think what you're telling me is true. And I immediately responded, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But that was, now, listen, my mechanism was I knew I couldn't fight that kid. I knew he needed to be fought. I knew somebody needed to do something. I was going to take justice into my own hands. The problem is it backfired on me. And I got 2 whacks on the behind with the green machine for coming up with this entire story. And then I get home and my dad, I grew up in a very religious family, says, do you know where liars go? Do you know what happens to liars like that? And I'm going, oh, daddy, I'm crying. Oh, mommy,
I just wanted to help the little girl.
It's liars burn in hell, Travis. And I was like, oh my gosh, so this entire thing became
wow, it really did come back to bite
you. The thing is that confrontation not handled properly, no matter how you go about it, can have some horrible results. And in practicing law, if you can't keep a lid on the anger and you don't keep a lid on your mouth and you don't think before you speak in confrontation, it can be devastating. It can be devastating. I
was going to say, do you have any have you ever had a situation?
Yeah, and I don't know how we're doing on time, but I'll try to make this abbreviated. So I was involved in a case. It was a pharmaceutical error case where a pharmacist had given the improper dosage of medication to a patient, and it caused the patient to bleed. Okay, I'll just tell you, bleed out. All right, and so we arranged to take the depositions. And the pharmacy was in Ohio County, and it's no longer in business. Not because of our case, but it's no longer in business. And so we did these depositions in the basement, in the bottom floor of the Ohio County Courthouse. It was one of those depositions where I was beating the other side up pretty bad. I mean, it was bad for them, and so this attorney had lost his temper with me and said, we're going out in the hallway. And I had not lost my cool. I was going about, and if I had done something inappropriate in my questioning, I would say it right now. I would tell you I did. I was just, the truth hurt. You know what I'm saying? And this guy had enough of it after a day and a half of getting beat up on. And so this attorney, he goes, I want to talk to you in the hallway. And so I walked out in the hallway, and the guy goes, I'm just so mad at you. And he goes, I'm going to kick your ass. And I was like, what? What are you doing? I was like, you're crazy. I'm not going to fight you. And he started cussing at me like a bully, like you've just, gone too far. This is deposition by ambush. And I'm like, what have I done that wasn't, public record? He was, again, angry and was not making sense in what he was saying. I mean, just going on and on and on. And I was like, what in the world are you talking about? So finally I was like, look, the judge is upstairs. And if we have a conflict that can't be resolved here and you're not going to let me go back in there and you're threatening to kick my butt out here in the hallway, then we just need to go upstairs and talk to the judge. And so it was, at the time, the judge was Ronnie Dortch, and he was upstairs and up on the 3rd floor of the courthouse. And so I just start traipsing up through this, and I'm yelling back, like, let's go see the judge. And the attorney wouldn't come. And that made me mad. I was like, look, you know what you're doing is wrong because you won't come and defend yourself in front of the judge. And I was like, come on now, we're going to see the judge. And he wouldn't move. So I kept walking up the stairwell and I was yelling, hey, what's wrong? You're not going to come see the judge? Like that. And I walked all the way up there and I sat right outside the judge's office. And the lady asked me, she said, can I help you, Travis? And I knew her. And I was like, yeah, sure. I need to talk to the judge. I'm downstairs doing depositions. This attorney is threatening me. And now he won't come up here. So the judge goes, what's going on? So the judge sends a bailiff downstairs to get this attorney, which just adds fuel to the fire, right? I mean, he's being escorted through the courthouse now by a sheriff. And so it brings him upstairs, and he starts in on, well, this has been deposition by ambush and blah, 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 blah. And he goes, well, what do you mean? The judge slows him down. What do you mean by deposition by ambush? He's like, well, he's asking my client all these questions about her history with the Department of Pharmaceutical Licensing. And he goes, what's wrong with that? It's a pharmaceutical case, you know. I mean, just going on. And finally, the judge says, I've heard enough. I don't know what in the world your problem is. He goes, now you go downstairs, shut up, and finish these depositions. And I was like, thank you, you know. So I'm walking back, and I'm just waiting for the guy to look at me. I was wanting to smile at him, or like, you know, blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. But seriously, he threatened to fight me in the hallway, calling me, cussing me, and then he wouldn't go talk to the judge. And when he did talk to the judge, he got told that what he was doing was inappropriate. So I would say that in all my 25, that's the closest I've come to I wasn't, for some reason, I just had I was calm and collective in that. Now, I did get mad when he wouldn't come upstairs to see the judge. I was yelling at him. I was like, come on, you know, like that. Yeah, I was yelling to the halls. I'm sure if anybody else was in the courthouse, they were like ducking, thinking.
I know, they're like, there's a crazy person.
That was before that's before there was, you know, metal detectors at the doorways of courthouses. So, I mean, any crazy could have been in the hallways yelling and screaming.
There was a crazy in the hallways.
Yeah, it was. I was upset. But yeah, I guess that's probably the closest I've come to a you know, fisticuffs in a case. So
yikes.
So anyway, but so anything else to add on Fight Club? I mean, anything? I'm amazed by your story, and there's some lessons to be learned from that, you know. And I think today's discussion kind of shows, you know, one of the purposes of the podcast here is to let people see behind the scenes, you know, but what we deal with is real life stuff, you know. It's not.
Absolutely.
And when we're involved in these cases, number one, we have emotional clients because they've been through a lot, and they get angry a lot of times, and they get upset. We've had some. Do you remember the time we had to shut down the video downstairs because the client got so mad at me and thought I was picking on him? And I got upset with him because I wasn't. Yeah. He just couldn't answer my questions, and I ended it. Remember, because I knew where we were headed.
It got heated in there. There's been some depositions which I'm not, you know, because they changed that law now. I'm not, right, because I'm the in-house video guy. I'm not allowed to be a part of depositions anymore. But I did enjoy being a part of the depositions in the beginning because there were some times when, you know, you would, and that was the best thing about it, is that you get people in a corner and they've cornered themselves by not being fully truthful.
Right, or trying to play games with you.
Right.
You know?
And then, you know, you have all the information that they don't think you have.
Right.
And then you back them in a corner and then they get, you know,
defensive.
So there were some times where I'm like, man, stuff just got real in this room. It was always really interesting. But I mean, those never really got out of hand or like became a big, huge conflict. But yeah, I do remember that one client that, it was a bit awkward because I remember sitting there going, where is this headed, you know?
Well, again, and the whole reason I bring that up is that people just glamorize or think attorneys and that all it is about money and attorney fees and the reality is that is such a small fraction of what this is really about. When you see people at their worst, or you see people in the middle of something like this, and you're against another attorney who's there's so many emotions involved, and learning how to harness those emotions, learning how to keep those in check, and speaking wisely and diplomatically in those times, it truly is a challenge. It really is. And so, you know, I've enjoyed today's discussion because it does show that there are other ways to resolve conflict other than fighting. Thank God, right? I mean, the Joker movie that's out right now shows you how fine of line we're on between chaos and peace,
right?
And how quickly that can turn bad, even though it's exaggerated a little bit for filmmaking purposes. But
and sometimes that conflict can raise billions of dollars.
Fine line, yes, it does, and that's the chase you're on, my man. That's the chase you're on.
Yes, I need my Joker.
To our expert question.
Yes.
It's your turn to fire away at me first. So go ahead and let me have it. Let me have your expert question of the day.
What is a subjective camera?
I didn't know cameras had feelings. A subjective camera is a potential camera for an alternate view.
Actually, yeah, that's very close.
Really? Go ahead and give me the Webster.
The camera is used in such a way as to suggest the point of view of a particular character. So you were close.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I got a question for you.
I won't even be close.
No,
with my
this is
answer.
this. You know, I'm gonna get, because you gave me one that the word kind of tipped off what it was subjective. Okay,
Right.
because in lawsuits we have, I mean, not in injury cases, we're always looking for objective injuries as opposed to subjective injuries. Like, is there, when it's a subjective injury, somebody's telling you how they feel about that, you know, but there's no proof of it. An objective injury is there's a picture, there's an X-ray, there's a test, a lab test that objectively defines the parameters of the
Right.
injury. So when I heard subjective, I knew could maybe get halfway close. So what I'm going to do in return for you is I'm gonna give you a 50-50. You could get this right by guessing. All right?
Do I get a lifeline?
This is why you always wanted true/false questions on tests, right? All right. So in a case, the plaintiff puts on their case first. They have to tell their story, and this is in a civil case. Okay. So the plaintiff puts on their proof. They call their witnesses, their client, their doctors, whatever, and then they put on all their proof. And then after that, the defendant gets to come in and put on their proof. Okay. And then there's a closing statement. And like television, filmmaking has always focused on these amazing closing statements. In civil cases in Kentucky, who gives the closing statement first, the defendant or the plaintiff?
I'm assuming it varies state to state because of
I think it's a pretty largely accepted.
I'm going to go with defendant.
You're correct. Ding, 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 ding. So we both got it right today. Hey! It's the first ever, right? All right. Maybe it's meant
I'm not as dumb as I thought I was.
Maybe it's meant that we end peacefully since we've been talking about Fight Club, right?
Yeah, this was a good one.
Yeah, so we both nailed it. Hey, listen, it's been great today with everybody. PJ, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next couple episodes. We're going to bring some people in to talk. I think we've got that lined up. And so this is Done Lite from 530 Frederick Street in the high-rise at Foreman, Watson, Holtrey. Have a great day.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!